Thank you. You may be seated. Well, good morning to everybody. Dumelang. And compliments of the new season. Thank you. We are going to start. Let me say good morning to all council who are here present.
Morning, Justice.
Good morning. Before we get on to swearing the witness, are there any matters which council would like to raise at the outset?
Justice, we have two matters which we would like to give a report on. We just want to put it on record that subsequent to the hearings of last year, the department has received letters of resignation from Dr. Tiago Ephraim Selebano from his position as the head of department of the Gauteng Health Department. And that resignation letter, the resignation was effective from the 15th of January 2018. And subsequent to that, there's been another resignation. Dr. Mahabu Manamela also resigned on the 17th of January 2018 from her position as the Director for Mental Health in the Department of Health, Gauteng. Those are the two matters which we just wanted to put on record. Thank you, Justice.
Thank you, Counsel. Do the letters set out the reasons for the resignation?
Justice, we have been given the instruction to make this announcement without having perused the content of the resignation letters. And we have accepted what has been communicated to us as a resignation is a unilateral act on the part of the employee. It is sufficient for that communication to be made in order for the resignation to become effective. We do not take any issue with the content of the letters.
Very well. From the rest of council, is there any comment, remarks in relation to what has been conveyed by council for the province?
Nothing from our side, thank you, Justice.
Advocate Hasen.
Not at this stage, Justice Masaneke.
No comment, Justice Masaneke.
Advocate Grunewald.
Thank you, Justice. Nothing from our side at this point in time, Justice.
Very well. The second matter which I thought we should clear out just before we get down to evidence is just to record our standing witnesses and their order. I think it's simply the public interest that make plain right away. We get into the end of this process, I would hope, and it's just helpful that we introduce certainty into what is going to happen in the next few days of the hearing. Advocate Hasen.
Justice, we do have an updated witness schedule, which I could read into the record. I understand that it's been circulated amongst the parties and there isn't any controversy. But if any of my colleagues take issue, they can say so now.
Yes. When I was young and I went to church, usually they would say, they would announce bans if you wanted to marry somebody.
Yes.
And when they announce it for the third time, they say you have to raise your objection or keep your peace forevermore. In other words, you would say nothing thereafter. So let me ask your colleagues if is anybody who has any objection to reading the current schedule, which I believe is agreed amongst council.
Thanks, Justice. So, beginning with today, we have Ms. Hannah Jacobus from the Gauteng Department of Health. She's the only witness that is scheduled for today. Tomorrow, 19 January, we have Professor Ames Dye, who's an expert who's being called by Section 27. On 22nd January, that's beginning on Monday, we have the former MEC, Ms. Mahlangu. On 23 January, there's no hearing scheduled. On 24 and 25, the hearing continues with Ms. Mahlangu. On 26 January, there is a health ethics expert, Dr. Grobler, who will be testifying and who's been called by the evidence leaders. On 29 January, there is no hearing scheduled. 30 January, it's the witnesses who are scheduled will be MEC, the current MEC for Health in Gauteng, Ms. Ramakgopa, and the current National Minister of Health, Minister Motsoaledi. On 31 January, it's Premier Makura. On 1 February, there's no hearing scheduled as we sit.
And that would be the end, wouldn't it, of the evidence?
The last witness will be the Premier, and that will be on 31 January. We then have no hearing on the 1st and 2nd, and that's the time during which we'll be preparing our written submissions, legal submissions, which we will be providing to yourself, Justice.
Yes. Very well. I think we have that clarity because there are a lot of questions floating around about just how much more and who else would be called, and I think that is quite clear. And it's in the public interest that it is abundantly clear. Evidence leader, African Guchana, do we have a witness?
As it pleases, I'm sorry, just Mr. Yes, we do have a witness. Hannah Jacobus is here.
Let's, Mr. Jacobus, take the stand, please. In which language do you prefer to testify?
In English, Justice.
In English. Would you put your full names on record?
I'm Hannah Jacobus, Hannah Hendrika Jacobus.
Do you want to take the oath or the affirmation?
Yes, Justice.
Do you swear that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth? And if so, raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Counsel?
Thank you, Justice Msaneke. Ms. Jacobus, where are you currently employed?
Counsel, I'm employed at the Department of Health within Gauteng, mental health services.
In what mental health, in what capacity are you employed?
I'm employed as the Deputy Director, overseeing NGOs within Gauteng, also supporting Ekurhuleni and Sedibeng districts with clinics, district hospitals and NGOs.
And how
I
long?
want to ask you to speak loudly and clearly because there are people listening in the venue. Thank you.
How long have you occupied that position of
I was-
Deputy Director?
Of Deputy Director, it's now 4 years, Counsel.
Yes. And during 2015 and 2016, you were, I take it that you were still occupying that capacity.
Yes, Counsel, I've started within the provincial office on the November 2013.
Yes. And you had mentioned that you were responsible for Sedibeng and Ekurhuleni
Districts, yes.
districts.
Yes.
How many districts do we have?
We have 5 districts within Gauteng.
And what are those districts?
If we take the district consists out of community services, that's your NGOs, your non-governmental other organizations, your small clinics, large clinics, your community health centers, district hospitals, regional hospitals, academic and specialized hospitals.
Yes. And your responsibilities as the deputy director, what do they entail in relation to NGOs? What do you do?
NGOs or I'm employed in NGOs is my core responsibility.
Yes.
So whatever, there are people that assisting me within the other districts, and I receive all documentation I execute all work, I motivate, I advise. In terms of auditing, also the final auditing reports comes to me where I have to motivate to my director in terms of to be licensed or not, based on the recommendation from the districts.
Yes. Just explain it quite clearly. You have said that you're responsible for 2 districts, and there are 5 districts. And out of that, you are responsible for NGO. Are you saying that you are responsible in general for all the NGO within the province?
Yes, Council, for all the NGOs within Gauteng province, within the 5 districts.
So over and above that, you were assigned a further responsibility to look at these 2 districts, that is
District
Esidimeni
service.
and Ekurhuleni.
Yes, Council.
Okay. And why was that so?
What Dr. Manamela expressed to us in terms of delegation of work in the subdivisions, because of the enormity of mental health services within the province, so that there can be a person be responsible in terms of if somebody within the district or an outside person or department needs any assistance, advice or clarity or support,
Yes.
that a specific person can then be turned to assist with whatever matter is at hand.
And still, this was in relation to NGOs for Esidimeni and Ekurhuleni.
Yes, NGOs within Sedibeng and Ekurhuleni district, and that also then includes your clinic services, your district hospital services.
Yes. And you said you will receive reports from these districts. Who was responsible for managing these districts?
What I've done, we've appointed district mental health NGO coordinators. Within the district services, you have mental health coordinators that oversees all the work within that particular district.
Yes.
And then we have special mental health NGO coordinators within each district. And due of the fact that there's so many NGOs within each district to assist and for execution of work.
Okay. And in the execution of this work, that is specifically in relation to these NGOs, and all of these, that is district coordinators, they report to you in relation to all matters that is relating to these NGOs.
Yes, Council.
Yes. And this will include licensing of NGOs, the number of NGOs which exists within a district.
Yes, Council.
Okay. And how would, how frequent will they report to you?
The districts will report to me on if it's normal circumstances and there's no challenges. On a quarterly basis, I'll receive a brief report from all district services that will inform me what's the circumstances with normal NGOs, if there was any incidents or challenges. So I'll receive all this. But if it's major concern, I would be informed with immediate effect.
Yes. And now it is a common cause that there was the project called the Gauteng Marathon project. Are you aware of, or are you familiar with this project?
Yes, Council.
And are you also familiar that there were certain NGOs which were licensed to receive patients from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, Council.
Okay. So what I want to find out from you is, tell us in your own words the requirements for licensing NGOs. As you
Just before you do, how long had you worked in the Department of Health, and in particular in mental health services?
30 years, Justice.
30,
Yes,
30.
30.
Thank you.
Yes. And in these 30 years, prior to you being appointed a deputy director, what were your other duties? You can just summarize them.
I was working in the Tshwane Pretoria area. I was assistant director there, overseeing mental health services as a whole, from community services up to specialized hospitals, supporting, advising, and also motivating whatever comes at the end from all those facilities. I was responsible for that.
Were you ever responsible for NGOs?
Yes, sir. In terms of NGOs within the Tshwane district, prior to my coming to the provincial level, there were, when I started as an assistant director within Tshwane, though I was working there previously, there were only 3 NGOs. And then I've opened up, I think, approximate 18 NGOs within the Pretoria area in very good standing.
Okay. No, it's fine. So I have requested you to set out the requirements or the procedure for licensing an NGO.
Okay, Council. The procedure for licensing is, in terms of referral of new or existing for expansion NGOs, would be from communities, different departments, colleagues, or a need or a crisis that we have to attend to. Then the district mental health NGO coordinator will then go out and do a pre-audit. A pre-audit is, there's an audit sheet that we use, a 3-page sheet, where they then will go out. But prior to that, it entails a lot of work that needs to go in. That person will do a community survey, visit other community entities like...
I think go a little bit slower. We're taking notes.
Oh, okay. Visit other areas to affirm and to acquaint themselves what is within the community.
Yes.
And only thereafter they'll then set up a meeting with the person that has requested or the referral, a date to go and visit the specific NGO. She will then meet, he or she will then meet with the manager and explain the purpose, and by that time the person will know the purpose of the visit. Have a short discussion with the person, will go around and do an observation. And at that stage, no promises would be made, no rectifications, because it's a fact-finding and to see what is at hand. Thereafter, the person will then go back to the office, report to her immediate supervisor.
This is the
in the district, the pre-audit.
Pre-audit.
Yes, go to a supervisor, discuss the matter, and we'll set up a meeting with the rest of the mental health practitioner team, which will then consist out of your occupational therapist, your physio, environmental health officer, infection control person, your if the need be, after a pre-audit, the doctors will be roped in. It's either medical officer, your psychiatrist, local authority, environmental health officer, and nutritionalist, and also co-opt, based on a knowledge and observation from the pre-audit, people will then be co-opt to also accompany this visit.
Yes.
A thorough visit will then be conducted at this NGO by all these experts.
What is that thorough visit?
There's a more
What is it
broader,
called?
there's a more broader form, a thick form of about 22 pages that will be then surveyed throughout that, within that service.
Is that still called a pre-audit?
No, that's a formal audit. The
That's a
pre-audit
formal
audit has been done already. So this is a formal audit by the experts within each field
Yes.
that will support this NGO manager. And each one will look at their category. The PHC nurse will look at the patients. The social worker will look at where's the patients coming from, what are the challenges. And each one will do that. Then at the end, the form will then be completed, and a feedback would be given to this manager, giving all the findings to this person.
Yes.
And still no promises would be made or rectifications to the facility, whatever there is, they'll just give a report back. Each one will go then back to the office and construct a formal report in terms of all the findings, There's a lot of administrative work also involved within this, which will the manager, the NGO manager will look at this.
But how many people would be engaged in the way you describe?
Just
You
as
talked
if I,
about a doctor, you talked about two
Everybody.
nurses, you talked about local authority. Would you just describe to me, would you just tell me the bodies, the warm bodies that would do the pre-audit and the formal audit?
the pre-audit will just consist out of the mental health coordinator, NGO coordinator, and a support. She can take any person, one of the experts of the mental health practitioners along, or if there's nobody and due to time and work constraints, she can conduct that alone. Within the formal audit, it's all the people that I've mentioned, and it could arrive up to 8 to 9 people that will visit this NGO.
So let's just get it clear on record. For, formal audit, there'll be about 8 professionals who would
Yes.
do the audit.
Yes,
And the
Justice.
8 would be made up of what category of professionals?
As I've said, Justice, it will be an occupational therapy that will look at in terms of what is the functional level of these users at that particular, if there are any users. If there's no users, they do it in conjunction. She will look at the type of patients there is and what their challenges are. At the facility itself, the rooms or
Yeah, let's not
space.
digress. Just identify the professionals.
Oh, okay. It's
We
the
may come back and
occupational-
say what does each
Okay.
do. But for now,
Just
an
the
OT is an occupational
therapist, a physiotherapist, a
Physiotherapist.
nutritionalist, infection control manager, environmental health officer. Between province and local authority, they've got different prescriptive roles that they play. So it will then both from both sides that will also join the group. What did I say still?
Well, you said 8 people.
Yeah, if there's, based on the pre-audit, what the manager's observation was, and it needs to be inclusive of a doctor psychiatrist, they will be roped in. I've said a social worker. I can't think now, I've mentioned it earlier on.
And
but
these professionals are required every time there is an audit,
a formal audit, Justice.
formal audit of an NGO,
Yes, Justice.
and this is before the license is granted.
Yes, Justice.
Thank you, Council.
Yes. And after the completion of the formal audit, what do you do? Do you draft a report or what?
I will not draft the report, Council.
Yes.
The different team members and the mental health coordinator, all the team members will submit all documentation to the manager and NGO manager, who will then construct a complete report in terms of from services up to administrative necessities will then be included. It will then be discussed with her immediate supervisor. And they will come up with recommendations. Do we open up this NGO or do we close down? And if there was perceived a challenge or a crisis that they've observed and patients should be removed immediately, we've got a policy according to that. So they will then construct the report like that. Then it goes to their chief director
I'm
within the
confused.
district.
It's a pre-audit.
No, it's a
How
formal
would you talk
audit.
about shutting down when we have not even opened the NGO?
Justice, if it's after the it can be during the pre-audit or during the formal audit. When the staff member goes out and see there's a challenge and it's a crisis, we cannot keep these people on the premises. So that will be then communicated. Then the execution will then be faster to complete the process. So each one, remember with all the team members that goes out, each one within its own expertise or field, will then carry out and draw up a report. The social worker, for instance, will also gather information, where's the people coming from, what's the addresses, do they have families, how come they've been admitted there, all those things will then be drawn up. So if it's a crisis and the place is not adequate to host the people there at that stage, it will be communicated with the manager. And it's not as simple as it's, besides the manager, they have to set up an urgent meeting. The NGO manager will set up an urgent meeting with the board of that specific facility to discuss these matters.
Aren't we tying ourselves up in all sorts of knots? I thought you were describing the procedure for awarding
The license.
License.
That is all part of the license, Justice. Because before you can give out a license, you need to know what is at the facility. Is there a board? That is a legal requirement to have a board of directors
Are there
for the
people who
facility.
set up NGOs without applying for a license?
They will be, what the NGO manager will do, after the pre-order, she'll have a quite vast knowledge. Do we continue with this? Do we support this NGO? There's so many limitations that if there's patients in, the patients would then temporarily removed from that facility and placed in another facility for
Ms. Jacobs, let me assist you. I think you did not understand the question. The question is, one, are there people who start NGOs without the necessary licensing processes? So that is one example.
yes.
So if I had not started an NGO and I simply approach you requesting a license, will the procedure be the same?
Yes, yes, Council, it will be the same. If the a person approaches and says, I want to start,
Yes.
so the same process would be followed. The manager will ask, do you have a space, do you have a place? If not, she will be taken through the legal process, what needs to be in place. This is the documentation, that is what the facility should look like, all that. If it's a place that's already in existence,
Yes.
and there are patients on the premises, that is why I say execution will then be much quicker. So the pre-audit will be done, the formal audit will be done, the necessary meetings with the board and the family members on there so that they understand what the findings was.
And on either scenario, these 8 professionals will go out there and satisfy themselves.
Yes, Justice.
Yes.
And then after the chief district manager will then sign off that document. After that, the document will then be sent up to provincial level, where I will go through the document, discuss it with my team members and the director. I will then go out back with the mental health coordinator to verify the findings on the document.
Yes.
Then after that, based on the recommendations of the district, I will also motivate and come up with final recommendation, and the place would then be licensed.
And who signs
whatever
these licenses? Who issues out these licenses?
Who issue out the licenses?
Yes. Who
The
signs
signed
off?
licenses.
Yes.
You ask that who
Who
signs
signs
it?
these licenses?
According to legislation, the provincial department is responsible to sign off licenses.
Who,
Sure.
who within the department? Is the HOD? Or
When I came to the provincial office, and after my first year of making out, my responsibility is to construct and compile the licenses. Then I would discuss it with documentation with the director to verify that each one is authentic.
And-
And that will be then given to the director. So with my period within the province, Dr. Mnamela was signing the licenses. But the first year, I was sort of verifying myself who else in the past signed the licenses. And according to my knowledge, previous directors has also signed these licenses. And my understanding was that the HOD may also delegate that responsibility if he don't have time or if he doesn't, by letter for that person to execute.
Thank you. Now let's get to specifics. Let me refer you to bundle 7. There should be a bundle of documents there in front of you. Are you there? Are you
Yes,
there?
I've got the bundle, sir.
Okay. The first page on the bundle is 2370. Are you on that first page?
Yes, Council.
And what is the document on that page?
It's a license in terms of the Mental Health Care Act number 17 of 2002.
And the date of the license?
First day of April 2016.
And for which period?
The period is, this license is valid for the period 1 April 2016 to 31 March 2017.
Yes. And from that page until page 2416, those are all licenses.
Yes. Yes, Council, I see.
Yes. And are you familiar how were these licenses issued?
These were the licenses for 16, 17. Am I familiar how it was issued?
Yes.
Yes, Council.
Were you involved in the processes as you explained it?
Yes, Council. Not the processes I've explained, but of executing and compiling, formulating these licenses, I'm aware.
Yes. Was that process, as you had explained it, complied with?
No, Council.
And why was it not complied with?
During the period of compiling these licenses, we received an instruction from Dr. Manamela that it's unusual circumstances situation, that normal processes cannot be followed, and due to the imminent closure of Life Esidimeni.
Yes. So, in the issuance of these licenses, what was your role?
My role was, I was delegated to make out these licenses.
Yes.
And when I also alluded to Dr. Manamela, but we cannot do this because we have to follow the other processes in order for us to be certain that we follow the legal procedure. And then again, Dr. Manamela said it's unusual circumstances and there's time frames for the closure of Life Esidimeni.
And when
So what I was instructed to do was, normally with all these processes, after the normal process, we will also have a formal adjudication process to formulate the whole process before we could start compiling licenses. So that process also wasn't followed.
It will
After-
help if you listen to the question
Yes, I
and try and deal exactly with
the
it.
question. Okay, what we
Fewer words often help
Okay.
better than more words. Just
Okay, what
listen to
we-
counsel. He has prepared and he has a clear route to lead you.
okay.
Again, I ask you, just listen to her and just answer the specific question, and he will follow up if he wants more from you. Thank you. Counsel?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Council, what was said, I was instructed to use the budget letter to
Yes.
make up the licenses.
A budget letter.
Yes, Council.
What is the budget letter?
After the formal processes, and I will send a letter out to the districts to submit their budget letters for the following financial year as specified here. So I will receive those in conjunction with all the other documentation, but at this stage it was only I've worked with a budget letter, that's alone.
Yes. And when these licenses were issued, were you satisfied that they comply with the requirements?
No, Council, I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't even clear what was going on because it was quite chaotic.
So, according to you, they did not comply with the requirements?
No, Council.
Yes. And when you said that you informed Dr. Manamela that you can't do it, where was this? Was it this in a meeting or what?
In a meeting, Council. We had normally on a Monday.
Do you
sectoral
still recall
meetings.
when was that meeting and where?
Excuse me, Council.
Do you still recall where and where was that meeting?
It was at the office, in the provincial office,
Which year?
prior to starting with the licenses, when we were instructed about, I think it was about 3 weeks prior to asking for the licenses to be finalized.
That will be March.
Yes, yes, Council.
Okay.
What exactly did you tell her?
I've alluded to Dr. Manamela. We didn't follow the processes.
I don't want allusions. I want you to tell us what did you tell her
Yes,
about the license.
about the licenses. I just told Dr. Manamela that I feel uncomfortable of compiling the licenses. We didn't follow the processes, and we're not sure what the situation with all these NGOs, known and unknown, is, because we don't sit with any documentation. And then she says it's an unusual situation and we are on time constraints.
You told her you were uncomfortable.
Yes, Justice.
And did you do it?
Yes, I was instructed to do it. I was delegated to do it because of the time constraints and the unusual
You
situation.
have to speak louder.
I was instructed to
It's a very important part of your evidence. This, I want you to be clear on the record.
I was instructed to continue formulating and compiling the licenses because it's an unusual situation and we under time constraints due to the closure of Life Esidimeni centers.
Did you get any district reports on each of these licenses?
No, Council.
How did you know what to write on each license?
Normally, within the budget letter, all the information would be on the budget letter except for the addresses.
Tell us, what's a budget letter?
The
Where
budget
does it
letter,
come from? Who writes it? And what does it contain?
each district coordinator, NGO coordinator, and the chief director, signed off by the chief director, will submit a budget letter with all the NGOs, existing ones and new ones. Their number, the number of licenses, the number that would be subsidized, and the amount, period. The amount for that particular NGO.
And how would you know how many beds there would be, and how many people will be covered by the license?
On the budget letter, there's a space for licensing, how many this facility would be licensed for. And then adjacent to that, there would be a subsidized number of people. If a facility has 10 people on the, it will state licensed for 10 and subsidized for 10 or subsidized for 8, depends what the circumstances
So you
are.
knew when you compiled the licenses that the details were not correct.
The details on the budget letter was correct, but the evidence, I didn't sit with any evidence to, because normally you will cross-refer what's the budget letter and then take your audit reports and all accompanying documentation to confirm the license.
Did you know that each one of those facilities were not audited?
Yes, Council.
Do you know that that was contrary to the law?
Yes, Council.
And did you know that people will be sent there once you had recommended that the licenses be issued?
Yes, Justice.
And did you know that these would be vulnerable people who would come, for instance, from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, Justice.
And you went ahead.
I was instructed to went ahead, Justice.
Who instructed you?
Dr. Manamela.
And she knew, did she?
Yes.
That the normal procedures for vetting NGOs had not been followed.
Yes, Justice.
And why did you go ahead?
I was instructed by Dr. Manamela, who said it's an instruction and we have to carry it out due to the closure of Life.
And if you didn't carry out the instructions, what would happen to you?
We've raised concerns, not just me as a team, we've discussed it, and she's just said it's an instruction.
Now I'm asking you, after 30 years in the department, I'm asking you, you're a very senior official in there, why didn't you say to her this is unlawful and it's going to cause possible death of people and I won't do it?
I've raised my concerns with Dr. Manamela. I've done that.
No, listen to the
Victor.
question. Why didn't you refuse to do it?
At first, I did refuse. I've discussed, and she says there's no other way we can do this. With the result, at the end, I was sort of taken out from a major task of this project, direct involvement.
But why did you sign unlawful, false licenses under the Act? Look at the document. It purports to be a license issued under the law of our country. Can you see that?
Yes, Justice.
And you falsely, fraudulently, knowingly caused the license to be issued.
Justice, I didn't issue the license. I've compiled the license and handed over a soft copy to Dr. Manamela.
No, but you caused it to be issued. You computed the details and the rest and gave it to her, right?
It was an instruction of Justice. I didn't have much of an option.
Counsel, go ahead.
Thank you. In relation to that particular issue of the issuance of the license and the processes you had explained, is it correct that the duration will take around not less than 6 months?
If I can just, for clarification, the duration of finalizing to open up a NGO.
The license, to issue the license from pre-inspection.
It could be 3 months, 6 months. It depends on the results of the audit.
Yes.
And it can even take longer than 6 months, up to a year, 2 years to finalize opening up an NGO.
Yes. And in relation to that, there has been evidence by Dorothy Franks that there's an ELA document, the ELA file, and I'm not sure whether it's in front of you there.
In the
And in the ELA file, there is ELA 49, which is an email dated 9 November 2015.
49.
The time is 10:25 a.m. It was coming from you, inviting NGOs to a meeting scheduled for 13 November 2015. Do you still recall that?
Yes, Council.
You issued that.
Dr. Manamela instructed me to invite the prospective NGOs that showed interest in expanding and new NGOs to be opened,
Yes.
so that they can be formally addressed in a formal meeting at the Sterkfontein Hospital.
Yes.
Normal
But
procedure.
listen to the question.
Yes, I
Did you
see.
issue that document?
Yes,
It's okay to
Justice.
say yes, and then the next of the
No.
questions will follow.
Yes, Council.
You know how
And-
to explain yourself away. Just wait, and there will be another question. Yes, you issued the document.
And when you issued the document, you were inviting these NGOs to a meeting. What I want to find out from you is that the NGOs you had invited, does it include those whose licenses appear here, or the majority of them?
Council, this document, this email that went out,
Yes.
it went to all district offices.
Or it went to
To
district offices?
If you can just see there at the top, the district coordinator will then further send the document to all NGOs or people that they have within their catchment area that has shown an interest.
Were those NGOs whose licenses appears on this file I have referred to present at that meeting?
Yes, it was quite an extensive number of NGOs that was present at the meeting.
At the meeting.
Yes, Council.
And at the meeting, what did you discuss?
Dr. Manamela discussed the closure of the Life Esidimeni project.
Yes. And was an explanation about the requirements to comply with that is, statutory requirements for licensing explained to them?
No, Council.
And when did you start compiling, in relation to those NGOs, compiling these documents for the issuance of the licenses? In
Council,
relation to this meeting?
to compile the documentation,
Yes.
Council. Some of these documentation was never compiled.
They were never compiled.
Yes, Council.
And yet they were issued with licenses.
Yes, Council.
But why didn't you tell the people at the meeting? You're the head of the NGO operations. Why did you tell them what was required of them?
Justice, as I've said earlier, when I raised my concerns with Dr. Manamela, my core function was removed from me and she was spearheading almost the whole project. And a lot of other people was involved, so I didn't have any direct
When she gave
interaction.
instructions to issue unlawful licenses, who else were present?
It was in a meeting, Council, in our provincial meeting.
Who else were at the meeting?
My other colleagues, we are 5 deputy directors within the office.
Who are they? What are their names?
Mr. Sanello, Mr. Nello, Dr. Lunkwani, Mr. Tobane, and myself.
So in the presence, you say Dr. Silubane was there,
No, Mr. Sanello.
or Ms. Sanello. In the presence of your colleagues, she said, ignore the legal requirements for licensing. These are urgent circumstances. Go ahead and issue the licenses.
They all objected, Justice. We all raised concerns, and it was quite a hectic debate around that.
Why did you object? What was your concern?
Because the normal processes wasn't followed.
But what did you fear would happen if the law is not followed?
What I would have feared was, we don't know the situation these NGOs was in, and especially the new ones that needed to be opened. And remember, prior to this process of the licensing, we've already started doing some surveillance on all these NGOs for expansion, new ones that needed to be opened. And
What did you think would happen if the NGOs did not satisfy the requirements of the law? What would happen to the patients?
that I cannot emanate, Justice.
No, but when you said here you're unhappy, you don't want this to happen, why didn't you want it to happen?
Justice, if you don't follow the proper procedure, it also influences financial issues. So these NGOs may or may not have or may not receive any support from the department without documentation.
And if they don't receive support, what impact would that have on the patients?
A lot of impact, the services, caring for them in terms of food, etc. There's a lot of things.
And they might die. Right?
We didn't anticipate or think about that, Justice, but there's a possibility
You just
that
carried on and
extreme measures
signed
can.
licenses which are unlawful, which would create obvious risk to patients, never thought they might die.
Justice, if one thinks back in terms of the support you would render to these NGOs, no extreme incidences like this has happened in the past. So you didn't even anticipate that it would happen. And we were thought of our input in supporting these people, that everything would go well.
But why were you unhappy to sign the licenses, though you did it?
Because, as I've said, Justice, in terms of the accompanying support to these NGOs and not have relevant documentation to work with and to work on.
And you know that
concrete.
people died.
Yes,
At the
Justice.
places where
Okay.
you recommended licenses should be issued. You know that.
Yes, Justice, I've heard that afterwards.
How many people have died?
When we heard about the patients that have died, it was the first time when I became known with it, there was, I think, 82 patients. And Justice, I still regret for listening and continuing executing activities.
Council.
Yes, thank you. Before we proceed on this, I'll just for completeness sake refer you to two documents that is annexed, just LR 119 and 112. This relates to the basic requirements for all NGOs licensed under Mental Health Care Act, number 1720.
Could you repeat the LR number, please?
LR 119.
Thank you.
And the second one is 122. I'm going to hand them over to you. You don't have them in front of you. And 122, it's termed the guidelines for the licensing of residential and daycare facilities for people with mental and or intellectual disabilities. Just give it to me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
These are some of the requirements that you spoke of.
Yes, Council.
You have already testified that they were not complied with. I don't think that it's necessary
Yes,
for me
Council.
to.
Well, but I want to know whether she knew about these requirements, did you?
Yes, Justice.
And you were the person who was charged by law to ensure that these requirements are complied with.
Complied with. Yes, I know we didn't. No, we didn't comply with these requirements. The
No,
one-
in your evidence, you said you were the person who was overall in charge of NGOs in the province
Yes, Justice.
and with the issuance of their licenses. Whoever
Constructing
might
their
sign them, but
licenses,
you are the
yes.
person who you reported to from the districts, and you the
Yes.
person who would say yay or nay and give that to Dr. Manamela to
Yes,
sign.
yes, Justice.
And you were aware of the requirements in LR 122.
Yes, Justice.
And you had read them many times, and you knew these were the requirements that had to be complied with before you would send patients to these NGOs. You
Yes,
knew
Justice.
that. And so too these guidelines. And is it your evidence that, in fact, knowing all this, you nonetheless breached the law?
I was instructed to do that, Justice.
And why would you accept an order that requires you to act unlawfully?
Justice, because of the issues at hand, Dr. Manamela said we have to do it because it's an instruction from above and all orders has to be carried
Well,
out.
let's be a little dramatic about this. I instruct you to murder Advocate Groenewald. I now instruct you to rise from where you are and murder Advocate Groenewald.
I
Are you
will not.
obliged? What's
No,
your answer?
Justice. No, Justice. I'm
No,
not
you wouldn't do
obliged
it,
to
would you?
that
Why wouldn't you do it?
because it's against the law to do that.
The irony doesn't escape you, does it?
No, Justice.
Yes. In relation to 122, this is the document that came from you. I see that on the first page, there's a date of 19 May 2017. The first page of 122, LR 122.
The
Top
first
right.
page. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
What does that mean?
This means this document came to effect on 19th of May 2017.
And at the time when these licenses were issued, were these guidelines contained in these documents already in existence?
No, the document wasn't in existence, but the procedure was in existence. I was part and parcel of assisting compiling this document with National. I was roped in.
According to the procedure which existed
Yes.
then,
Yes,
which
yes.
you ought to have followed.
Yes, Council.
Okay.
And LR 119, in any event, was in existence then, wasn't it?
No, this one was drawn up by me a long time ago to give guidance and to assist the coordinators to follow procedure in terms of training.
And at the time of the project, it was in existence.
It was there, it was available.
Yes. That's fine. In relation to this assessments, evaluation reports, pre-assessment evaluation reports, or audit report, Dr. Manamela's evidence was that they do exist. You did audit the NGO before they were issued with licenses, and those reports are in existence. She would bring them. We're still waiting for them. Is that correct? Factually correct?
According my knowledge, Council, it's incorrect. It wasn't in existence. We did not perform any audits at all the facilities.
And let me refer you to one example in file 11, that is 7, the bundle 7. It's right in front of you. Let's start from page 2417. Are you there?
Almost, Council. 2417.
Where the divider is,
Yes.
What is that document? Are you familiar with it?
I became familiar with this document, Council, during the course of the project.
During the course of the project?
Yes, Council.
What is that document?
It's an audit report.
And is this one of the documents which you would, according to the standard practice you have explained, employ to audit NGOs?
According to my knowledge and information, this is not the document that would be used. What we've used prior the project, if you page further.
No, it's fine.
Council.
I'll come to that.
Okay.
It's on page 2427.
Oh,
Go to page 2427.
2427. Yes, Council.
Are you there?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that document?
Yes, Council. This is a document that would be used for pre-audit and at the end of the formal audit
Yes.
to be completed.
So this document on page 2417 ought to read like the one that is on 2427.
I have no idea, Council. I can't answer for that. I did not compile
You
this
did not
document.
compile that?
No, Council.
Okay.
But why is it so? These are people who are working for you, were they not?
Let's go to page 2423. Oh. Do you see your
Yes.
name on the
Yes, yes, Council.
document?
Yes.
Who inserted your name there?
But this was instructed after the placements of the placement of the patients at these NGOs.
Yes.
And Dr. Manamela, in a way, forced us to sign this document because when I said to her, I've alluded this previously, and during the course, when I became known of this document, that it's not right to use a document that was constructed during the process of a project.
So, so what you are saying is that this document was constructed
During the
the process of Life Esidimeni.
Yes, Council.
So during the process, you abandoned the employment of the document on page 2427.
Yes, Council. Because it incur a lot of work.
It will incur?
It incur a lot of work and time. It's very tedious to execute these documents.
Yes. But why was the document on 2427 there?
2427.
Yes, 2427.
It was available, Council.
It was available.
Yes.
Okay. Then let's go through that document so that you explain further on these processes. That is on 2427. And on the, that is page 2430.
I have it, Council.
The first item is organizational information on, that is 2 against 2. What does that mean? Can you explain it?
It means that there should be a copy of the Constitution that was supposed to have been seen. The
Yes.
last date of the Constitution drawn up,
Yes.
date of the AGM due date the following one, financial statements that was provided, and that would have been confirmed with the formal audit, because the financial person also assists the team when the formal audit are being constructed.
Yes. And would I be correct that that document requires you to explain if there's anything else?
Yes,
And not only that, that is, you must insert it in writing
yes, it should be in writing
throughout that document.
throughout the document.
Does the same appear on page, that is on the document on page 2417?
No, Council.
So what are you required to do there?
According to my information, my observation as I see this here, this document is only a yes and a no instruction,
It's just a tick list.
just a tick list.
So, the form on 2427 was adopted to make the audit easier than required by the form on page 2417. Is that your evidence?
Justice, not easier. If you utilize the 2427, it's a complete detailed report. The one on 2417 is an easier document to get things done. But it doesn't
2427,
explain anything, yes, Justice.
in simple language, 2427 is a shortcut to the requirements on 2417. Is that it?
Justice, not really a shortcut, because if you go through the one on 2417, it contains all the information on 2427 and 2431. That whole 2 documents is contained into here. But this one there's no explanations on 24217.
So why the change? What was the explanation for the change
I
from
have-
one form to the other?
I have no idea, Justice. I wasn't part of compiling this shorter version of the
But
of
this
the
was your
form.
turf. You were in charge of this.
Justice, as I've
Audit
said,
of NGOs was your core function, according to your evidence.
Justice, when we started off and there was my discussion with Dr. Manamela and my concerns, I was removed from the core function of NGOs, and a lot of other people was then engaged to draw up and assist in the whole process.
So this form was drawn without your consent
Without my knowledge,
and without your knowledge.
not consent, wasn't aware of when this form was drawn up.
And did you tell her that you are the one in charge and she shouldn't do that?
As I've said, Justice, I wasn't put in charge of the project. I have been withdrawn from core functions of NGO administration.
Council.
Yes. And on page 2446, 2446, there's another audit checklist for community mental health care centers that accommodates users with severe and profound intellectual disability and psychiatric disorders. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
What is that document? Can you explain it?
I also have no knowledge of this document. I didn't draw this up in this. My observation afterwards when I found out about this document was also constructed during the process of the project.
Of the project.
Yes, Council.
were you informed that these documents will be constructed or will be used?
No, Council.
When did you become aware of the existence of these documents?
I became aware late during the course of the project where Dr. Manamela phoned me and instructed me to tell I was then mainly within the Pretoria area, to make the NGO manager aware to use these two documents and not use the other documents. I've discussed it with the coordinator and said to her, I don't know where this is coming from, who construct the documents, but it cannot be used. Hence, if you go to the Tshwane follow-up or visitation documents, they still use the old version and not the new one.
Yes. And upon finding out that they are using these documents, did you object or report to the HOD or whatever? What, other than that, other than telling Dr. Manamela that you can't do this, what did you do?
Council, at this stage, I didn't even see the document because when I was instructed and called by Dr. Mamela, I said to her, I have no knowledge and I'm not in a possession of this document. And then I was told to contact somebody to send, but the whole process was very rushed and chaotic. I've tried to contact one of the people that she referred me to, Mr. Nello, and I couldn't get hold of her, so we didn't use this document. I only saw it very late afterwards.
Would I be correct that designing these documents would be your responsibility, part of your core responsibilities?
Or if I should have been part of the designing of it. If I didn't design it myself, I should have been part of it. But I wasn't.
And why do you think you were overlooked?
Justice, as I've said earlier on, with all the concerns and I think my relationship with Dr. Manala at that stage, I was removed from my core function of NGOs. So I didn't partake actively in the administrative
Why were you removed from your core function?
She has assigned other duties to me, Justice.
Excuse, I'm sorry, you say it again.
Dr. Manamela has assigned other duties to me.
But did you come to find out why you were removed from your core duty of overseeing the NGO interface?
She did not explain and just said it's unusual circumstances and everybody's help is needed within this, broader than me.
And who was installed in your place?
I was part of the process. A lot of people, there was no direct person restored or put in my place. And mostly senior management and Dr. Manamela was driving the process.
You know, so many people have come here in your department and they've demonstrated one quality, that is to scrum away from responsibility. I was moved away. I didn't see this happen. Are you doing that?
I'm not doing that. Other duties was assigned to me. And there was a shortage of beds, so I was assigned to deal with all the other core
There'll be a lot of
functions.
questions about that. Your name appears in many of those movement of patients. That is still coming. Most of these advocates will ask you those questions. But for a moment, you see, you came this morning and proudly told us that you were the chief honcho in charge of NGOs, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
Their assessment, their audit. You prepared the licenses. And in the past, even people in your position signed licenses. That was your evidence. And now, there's trouble, you say you were moved away from that responsibility. Do you have any response to that?
I don't have a direct response, Justice, because Dr. Manamela, as our director, has assigned and says it's an unusual project and she will delegate who needs to do what. So she delegated certain things and divided us
she
into different
delegated your
areas.
function to a person you don't know.
Yes, Justice, I cannot answer that.
Why
She's
can't
the
you
only
answer
one.
that? Why not?
I don't know who she has delegated to take over my role, but we were all busy within the whole project executing certain things.
You know, you're a public servant. You get paid for 30 years to do your job. and to look after patients who are vulnerable. The moment comes to testify, no, you know nothing. Just think carefully your attitude, please. There'll be many questions asked. And don't scrum away. We just want to know what the truth is. Do you understand that?
Yes, Justice.
Please, just help us. We've been here many days, but every one of you comes and just runs away from responsibility. Counsel?
Yes. And why were were your duties, let me take another shot, why were your duties assigned to someone else?
Justice, Counsel, my duties wasn't assigned to somebody else. Within the execution of work with the whole team in province, there were certain duties assigned to each of us by
Yes.
Dr. Manamela.
Yes. And the drafting of these documents was done without your knowledge.
Yes, Counsel.
And despite the fact that it formed part of your core functions.
Yes, Counsel.
You know, Dr. Manamela came here and said she knew nothing about the licenses. You presented the licenses to her to sign. You now say you know nothing about the licenses. She instructed you to complete the licenses. Where's the truth there? What do you want to tell us?
The truth is, Justice, Dr. Manamela instructed me to draw up the licenses for the project when it's time for the people to be placed, that their licenses have been done. And as I've said earlier on, not just me, but the whole team we raised our concerns, and there was quite a hectic discussion for a few meetings concerning that. And every time she would just respond to us and says, it's an instruction, we have to do it, and it's because of the unusual process.
She says she never checked because she relied on you. You were the one who had the duty to check and make sure that the NGOs are competent or good for purpose. What do you say to that?
Justice, what I can say is, Dr. Manamela, when instructed me to compile the licenses, I've raised my concerns, I point out all the different areas in terms of forms and documentation and all, and she says that it was an unusual process and there's a lot of time constraints.
But was she telling the truth when she said, you are the one who knew all about the audits and you are the one who completed the details of the licenses?
No, she wasn't telling the truth, Justice.
Counsel.
Yeah, and further to that, she had said that the necessary information to compile or to be compiled was done by the district and handed over to you.
Yes, Counsel.
Then thereafter, these licenses were issued.
Yes, Counsel.
And you say that never happened? The
Yes,
district
Justice.
gave you nothing?
Yes, Justice.
Was she telling the truth when she said you received data or information from the district?
According to my knowledge and what I know, it wasn't the truth, Justice. Nothing was received from the district.
And do you know why she would lie like this?
I have no idea, Justice. I cannot answer for her.
But you're quite certain that you received nothing from the districts, and she's untruthful when she says you were given all the information from the districts.
Yes, I'm sure, that's Justice.
You sure about that?
That nothing was forthcoming from the districts.
And you sure that Dr. Manamela was lying?
Yes, Justice.
Just to move off from this point, let me refer you to page 2494.
Yes, Counsel, I'm there.
You are there. What is that document?
2494, I just want to go to the page. It's also an audit document on 2494, yes.
What is the date of the visit referred there?
28th July 2016.
And what is the name of the center?
Precious Angels.
Okay. Then let's go to the following page, 2495. The second bullet point, it says the number of rooms available is not enough for the patient. As a result, some beds are too close to each other. In house 1, the beds in the western wing were placed in such a way that the door could not be closed and the area is windy. Are you there?
Yes, Council, I say.
Would you agree with me that if a pre-audit was done, this could have been identified at that stage?
Yes, a pre-audit and a formal audit would have been
The
identified.
pre-audit and a formal audit.
Yes, Justice.
So that the fact that this was found out of a visit made on 28 July 2016, it means that it was not done before.
Can I answer on that? But
Yes, you can
I
explain.
can't just say yes or no. According to what I see here, and if you take in conjunction with a formal audit,
Yes.
remember with a formal audit, the environmental health people will be part of the audit, and they will then measure the space for each person. So it will then be indicated that this facility can only take in 2 people, for instance. And without a formal audit, without measurements, more people, what I observe here, has been placed into this facility.
More patients.
Has been placed into this facility because of what I read here, it was space, there wasn't any space, it was too close, etc.
So the required guidance would have been provided if this this informal audit and the formal audits were done.
Yes, Councillor.
Who ordered this audit?
I don't know the Justice.
But why don't you know that?
Justice, as I've said, we've been assigned different duties during the course of the project, and specific people were assigned to specific areas.
Look at page 2494. It says MHD. What does MHD refer to?
2494. It says,
Under purpose.
okay, the Mental Health Directorate.
And Westkop is hospital. You are part of the Mental Health Directorate, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
And you don't know about the audit that was done at Precious Angels
No, Justice. As I
on
said,
28 July 2016?
no, Justice.
Why don't you know that?
we
We are
were
working at the Mental Health Directorate.
We are 5 DDs within our office, and we've assigned to certain areas within the whole of Gauteng. So one person would be responsible for with taking in all the patients that was placed at the Life and the different NGOs. So specific person would then cater or care for a certain number of NGOs.
Do you know that this venue at Precious Angels, the evidence suggests, was a death trap?
I've heard
Many
it afterwards.
patients died. You know that?
Yes, Justice.
How many do you know have died?
What I've heard, 18 patients.
18
Yes.
souls passed on at this place.
I was saddened when I heard that, Justice.
It would have
I
been
was
your
saddened.
normal duty to audit the place, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
And you prepared the license that was issued by Manamela, isn't it so?
Yes, Justice.
And people died there because of your conduct and Manamela's conduct.
When I became known of this, Justice, and I looked at I've asked for the address where this is, it was also even a different facility where these patients were placed. The initial facility identified for placement wasn't used.
Did any of your people go to Precious Angel before people were sent there?
Yes, Justice.
Did they compile a report?
Yes, Justice. Not a brief report. Within the process, no formal, normal reports was compiled.
Where is that report?
I don't know. Maybe council is, I don't know. I didn't bring along the report.
Did you see the report before people were sent to Precious Angel?
No, Justice.
And you compiled the license which ultimately was issued to Precious Angels.
Yes, Justice.
Did you ever go to Precious Angels yourself, physically?
After the placement, when I heard what was going on, I went to go and look what was going on. And as I'm saying, when I got to the place where the patients was, I then informed Dr. Manamela and I asked her who has placed the patients there, because that was not the identified facility that was initially indicated for Precious Angels. It was a complete different facility, a different address.
Where did you get the addresses that you wrote into the license?
From the pre-visits.
So there were pre-visits?
Yes, there was pre-visits. Justice.
I thought your evidence was there were none whatsoever.
There wasn't formal, normal process visits, Justice, but brief pre-visits were conducted.
At all the places where the licenses were issued?
Yes, Justice. Can I explain that process, the pre-visits or the
Yes.
marathon sort of visits? What happened was, I think it was towards the end of 2015, I then went to Mrs. Mananyai from Facility and Planning. I was alone that time in the office, and asked for assistance because Dr. Manamela said that when she comes back from leave, she wants a report. And I alone cannot do that, irrespective of what I know and what I have. So I went and asked for support from the Facility and Planning Division. And there were a few engineers still working. And the others even cancelled their leave to support. So we started with formal hospital visits to determine what the costing and what the facility is. And in January, from mid-January, we started with visiting these NGOs with the engineers. She says that the districts shouldn't be involved, and I said to her, because even if they're not involved, after placement, the districts will be involved. So I, on my own, then phoned all the district coordinators and asked for their help. I explained to them, Dr. Manamela said it's not necessary for them to do it, but for me, for my sake as a person.
Talking about, frankly. I ask you about Precious Angels.
Yes, sir, I'm saying the pre-visits.
And there are premises entered into their license. And I want to know whether you've ever visited the premises.
The original place where the license was supposed to be placed, yes, that place I visited, but not the
So why
second
did
one.
you write the wrong premise in the license?
That I cannot answer, Justice.
No, but
I
you were
only
there.
see
You went
that.
there. You say you were there.
Justice, I went to the first identified space for Precious Angels, and there was a brief report on that one. But when I've heard what happened, I went then and looked where the patients are with a colleague of mine, and then I indicated, but this is a total new facility. It wasn't even meant to be placing patients there.
But why do you tell everybody and save 18 lives? Tell everybody beforehand that Precious Angel is not ready to receive mental health care users.
I did not do the placements, Justice, of patients within these in all the facilities.
But you were there, and it's your job
I
to
went
make sure
after
the
the
NGOs function
placements.
optimally. Why don't you go and scream to everybody, to the whole world?
We-
People will die if they're taken there.
We have raised our concerns with Dr. Manamela. We've raised our
We're
concerns
talking
with
about
Dr.
Precious
Manamela's.
Angel. I want you to understand, what did you do to prevent the deaths that ensued? That's really what I'm asking about.
I did not visit Precious Angels on a regular basis, Justice, because there was other NGOs that I had to visit also and support.
While on that issue on Precious Angels visits, the evidence of Ms. Ngube, that is Ethel Ngube, was that the first patients were received on the 23rd of June. And this visit, it appears it was conducted just a month later. And you found all these problems, which appears on page 2495. And what I want to find out from you, when did you make these visits to Precious Angels in relation to these dates?
I made a visit to Precious Angels when my colleague found me just shortly after the placement.
After the placement?
Placement, yes.
And prior to the placement?
Prior to the placement, a brief audit was done to identify the spacing for Precious Angels.
Yes.
And hence I say when I got there, it was a total different facility and not the initial identified facility.
Okay. Then let's go to the, that is to the, back to the license on Precious Angel. Let's look at the date there. No, the premises for which they were issued the license. It's on page 2397.
2397.
Is that the premises you visited?
No, Justice Council.
And which premise did you visit?
It was, I can't remember the address, but it was a premises in Ettrishville.
Okay.
And why issue a license in respect of Linwood Road?
I did not construct this license, Justice.
What do you mean?
Justice, the licenses are all on a soft copy. When the initial licenses were made for Precious Angels, it was made out to Kalafong Heights.
But your evidence is that you completed the details on these licenses.
Linwood Road, I didn't visit Linwood Road.
Why did you issue a license in respect of a premise that you did not know and had not been to?
I did not construct this license, Justice, this one of Linwood Road.
Who did?
I don't know, Justice.
But I thought it was your evidence that you completed all of them.
I've
On the
completed,
instructions of Dr. Manamela.
I've completed a license for Precious Angels for Kalafong Heights.
But why did you and Manamela play such roulette with lives of leaving people? Why did you do this?
Justice, I didn't play roulette. I've just constructed all the licenses prior to 1st of April, and that was it.
When somebody has a license in hand, they're entitled to do what?
To occupy a facility at a specific space for a specific
And to
type
receive
of
mental
people.
health care users, right?
Yes, yes,
And you knew that.
yes.
And you knew every time the licenses were completed and signed, people, vulnerable patients would be sent to those premises. You knew all
Yes.
that. Why did you do it?
Justice, if I can say again, in normal circumstances, it would be my sole responsibility and accountability
Yes,
to
and why did you
adhere
assume
to
that
it.
responsibility? So you protect people who were completely in your hands, who depended on you. What is the answer? Why did you do it?
Justice, I regret, really I regret, and
Let's
I've
forget about
discussed,
regretting for a moment. I
I've
want you-
discussed with Dr. Manamela, I've raised my concerns, it was discussed. We had a special meeting with Manamela's supervisor, it was discussed, our concerns were raised. Dr. Mazamiza raised the concerns, but Dr. Manamela still continued. It was a process and the days to be followed.
Yes, let me refer you to LR 26. This is another license for Precious Angels.
Page?
LR 26, the LR documents.
Is it this one? Where is it, 26? Oh, yeah. I see, yes, it. Thanks. Yes, Council.
Yes, remember just recently you made reference to Kalafong Heights.
Yes.
Yes, this is a license for Kalafong
Yes,
Heights.
Council.
And where's the license for the premises which they occupied in Atteridgeville?
There's no license that was made out to that council, according to my knowledge. I didn't make out a license for that one.
Okay, it's fine. Let's then explain why was the license issued for this premises, Kalafong Heights, and for that number of persons. Can you explain that?
Yes, Council. In terms of the licenses for the 1st of April, as I've said, we've done brief pre-visits with the engineers, and all the areas that we visited was measured. So this is the amount of people that the space where Precious Angels was supposed to engage. That's the amount of beds that could have fit into that specific facility.
At Kalafong Heights?
At Kalafong Heights, yes.
Were these beds available, actual beds available at Kalafong Heights when this license was issued?
The beds were available at a much later stage, Council,
But
not at that time.
But as at the time when the license was issued, the beds were not available?
There were no beds available, Council.
Is it not a requirement of that is for licensing that you must issue a license in respect of the actual number of beds available?
Yes, Council, that's normal procedure.
That's normal procedure.
Yes.
You don't speculate on that?
No, you don't speculate.
Okay. And now that they ultimately occupied different premises, is it permitted in terms of the regulations that you issue a license for this particular address and you end up in Johannesburg or some parts of Johannesburg?
It's not permitted. According law, it's not permitted
It's
to
not
execute and to allow such a thing to happen, Council.
And what did the department do when they found out that this was happening?
When I raised my concerns about the different spaces available for NGOs and where the people are placed, Dr. Manamela that's told me that the corrections would be made afterwards when the project ends.
And on this LR 26, it appears that it was signed by Dr. Silebano. And from his evidence, it was post-dated.
No, it's the same date.
No, from his oral evidence. It was not signed on the 1st of April.
Yeah, it was signed at a much later stage. Can I explain that,
Yes.
Council? It was one Saturday morning. Dr. Namela phoned me and says I must come into the office to do licenses. So I asked her what licenses and what for. Then she says she would explain. Then I said, can't it wait for Monday morning?
Yes.
And she says, no, she needs licenses to be signed by Dr. Salabano. I asked why. Then she says, she was told that Dr. Salabano must sign the license. I said, but we can't do that because you already signed licenses and it's not legally correct. Phone Dr. Salabano again and tell him, let's discuss it on Monday morning. And then by this evening, she phoned me again, I must be there the Sunday morning. And I said, I'm not coming in, I'll see them on Monday.
Yes.
Sunday, around about 11:30, she called me again and says I must, she doesn't have her soft copy, it's in the office. Do I have? I said, yes, I've got my memory stick. And she says I must mail it to her. And that is what I've done. So I mailed the stuff to her.
So the actual signing of this document were not there?
I was not aware, and I wasn't aware even that it has been changed for Dr. Salabano to be
Why were
finalized.
the licenses backdated?
I have no idea, Justice. She didn't explain to me. And if, as you see there, it was done at a much later stage. If Dr. Salabano signed the license, the dates should also have been changed from 1 April to, let's say, 3rd April that it will be signed by him. And yet it constructs the same amount of, the same
If you look
time
at the license,
span.
it tells you of the period of validity, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
So why backdate the day on which it is signed?
Because he signs it, I mean, he didn't sign the license on the 1st of April. He has signed it at a later stage. So he should have or would have signed it on that day that he signs. And that is with any document, I assume, that you sign on that day, you denote that
And
date
no
that you
doubt you
sign.
know that that is forgery.
I don't know what they've done. I wasn't part of this, and I wasn't. I
But
didn't
you
assist.
confirm that you know that these were backdated, signed on much, much later date than the 1st of March.
Yes, when I've heard, and as I've sent the soft copy to her, it was at a later stage.
And did you report this to anybody?
I wasn't aware of this
Dr.
because
Manamela and Dr. Silibano are acting fraudulently.
Justice,
They're
I was.
signing documents and attaching dates which are false. Did you report that to anybody?
Justice, I wasn't aware that this was done because after my discussion with her, I thought that the matter was laid to rest. And I didn't hear anything afterwards. It was only at a much, much later time when I saw this document at the NGO that it was done.
And once you saw it, did you go and report to anybody? You're a public official, is an offense or a wrong committed under your nose. Did you report it to anybody?
I've reported again to Dr. Namela and asked her and pointed out to her about this.
You told her what?
That the dates and the signing and the signature of Dr. Salabano should have been changed, and they've contain the same date. And that was at a much, much later stage, well beyond the project.
You seem to have been quite hell-bent to act against the law, to ignore the law in this project, isn't it? You've given me at least 3 instances of blatant, unlawful conduct.
Justice from my side, remember we report and we ask, we raise concerns, and we've done that many a times. And Dr. Namela said it was, she'll take it to senior management where they'll discuss it.
Have the police visited you?
Yes, Justice. We're still busy in that process.
Have you made a warning statement to the police?
We're still busy in the process, just not yet finalized.
Counsel.
In fact, just to finally on this point, when, according to the evidence, when this license was signed and backdated, already there were many deaths at this facility, around 20.
Counsel, I wasn't aware of the deaths initially, only made known at a much, much later stage where we've been informed. So I had no prior knowledge to that.
Yes. Thank you. Then let's move now to focus ourselves on the policies of the department in relation to this issue. I want to find out from you specifically, from your knowledge, when patients were moved and how were they to be moved? What was the plan for the movement of these patients to the NGOs which you had identified?
My contribution, or just
Yes.
the knowledge, the
Yes.
procedure, how it should be done?
Yes.
In terms of procedurally, when you move a person from one place to the other, for whatever reason, the family needs to be notified, the person has to be assessed again in terms of the current status, and a correct placement then needs to be done.
Yes.
And when the person reaches the new facility, a similar thing happens, And then the occupational therapists would come out to that new facility to do a reassessment so that continuation of services can continue.
Okay. Then, now let's go to the actual policies of the, that is of the department in existence at the time. And I'll refer you to the, to ELA 121, the Mental Health Services Strategic Plan, 2014 and 2020. It's a new document. Where's the national policy? And together with that, I want to refer you to the to another policy that is ELA 124.
Thank you.
And let's start with ELA 124.
Yes, Council.
And are you familiar with that document?
Yes, Council.
What is it?
It's the National Policy Framework
And on what?
on a deinstitutionalization of mental health care users and the guidelines on norms and standards.
And when was this document adopted?
This document was adopted in 2014, I think, originally signed off and then sent out to services, to the provinces.
Yes. And the implementation of this project, was it an implementation of this policy?
No, Council.
It wasn't.
No, Council.
Okay. Then let me take you to, the document is not numbered, but on item 8 or clause 8 of the document,
Roles and responsibilities.
yes, roles and responsibilities. It says the roles and responsibilities are consistent with the roles as set out in the Constitution and the National Health Act. The roles of the Minister of Health, the MECs, heads of health at national and provincial level, the National Health Council, provincial health councils, and district councils are set out in the National Health Act. The roles and responsibilities are articulated in this document only to mental health functions within this overall structure. So I want us to confine ourselves, that is, to mental health functions.
Yes, Council.
Okay.
You're reading from ELA 121?
124. I'm sorry.
124, okay.
Item 8,
Yes.
clause 8,
Thank you.
roles and responsibilities. Then, whilst on that, the following page, item 8.3, I'm not going to read the entire set. 8.3.1, provincial departments of health, the roles of responsibility.
Let me just get it. Yes.
Translation of national policy into provincial strategic and operational plans, which include clear targets, indicators, budgets, and timelines.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
And it sets out a whole range of other responsibilities for the provincial health department.
Yes.
Okay. So, ELA 1.2, that is 1.2.1. Was it adopted in line with that policy or not?
I've never seen the signed copy of this document, but I am aware and I was part and parcel of constructing this one-to-one document.
One-to-one document.
Yes, Council.
Yes. In what were you pursuing there? Were you pursuing following the national policy?
The national policy.
Okay. And does it deal with mental health?
Yes, Council.
And does it deal with life as a domain?
No, Council.
It doesn't. Okay, let's go to the document. Justice Msenek, I see it's 11:30.
Yes, I think we should take the adjournment now. And that will be up to 12 midday.